pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, thank you. So, appeal number 3177, the applicant Alessandro's Restaurant LLC. That matter was requested for continuance, which was granted, and that'll be placed on the September agenda. Appeal number 3183, the applicant Ryan and Louise Bonner, property located at 223 Rockingham Road, zoned R5 as residential. The applicant resides in the single-family attached dwelling twin at the corner of Rockingham and Fitzwilliam Roads. The principal building is currently non-conforming in regard to the rear yard setback. The existing detached garage is non-conforming in that it is closer than 10 feet from the main building. Applicant wishes to construct steps and landing area to the rear door of their home, which will increase the non-conformities. Applicant requests a variance from section 280-35A5 and 20-35A7 and contends that the relief requested is de minimis. The applicant further seeks such other zoning relief in accordance with the exhibits and testimony presented at the zoning board.
Evening.
Hey, Nick. How are you?
Nick Canelli, representing the applicant. This is a property that's a triangular property at the intersection of Rockingham and Fitzwilliams. So Rockingham comes up here, Fitzwilliams comes up here. It is half of a twin. The other twin is on this particular side. So we're talking about half of a twin. As mentioned in the application, it's non-conforming in regards to a number of items: front yard setback, rear yard setback, distance between the garage and the building. So it has a number of nonconformities and certainly is very irregularly shaped in that it is a triangle with a street basically running the whole one side Rockingham Road. The proposal is to put a deck in between the existing addition where it says proposed addition. That proposed addition has been built and we do have a permit for that. The issue came up because when they built it, they wanted to put the door on the rear of the proposed addition, which would further increase the existing nonconformity. Therefore, we had to stop work on it. They did it voluntarily. Township said you can't do it. You'll see the addition really, there's only one place you can put the door the way the addition was constructed. And that's when we came back here and asked for zoning relief as a result. I do have a copy of the permit showing the grant of the addition. And as I said, Mr. Bonner is here and he will testify as to the proposal and what we're looking for.
Yes. Ryan Patrick Bonner. There you go. Okay.
Ryan, you're the owner of 223 Rockingham, the subject property,
Yes.
and you acquired it. I've marked as A2, a deed dated November 6, 2023,
Yes.
and you acquired it with your spouse, Louise.
Yes, correct.
And who lives there with you now?
My wife Louise and our children Bo, who is 21 months old, and Lucy, who is 6 months old.
We're looking at A11, and this is half of a twin that you reside in.
Yes.
And I'm going to show you what's been marked as A3. And is this an aerial of the property?
Yes.
And the dot here is your half of the twin, correct?
Correct.
And on the other side is the other half of the twin.
Yes.
And Rockingham comes up here and it kind of points as a triangle where it goes down to Fitzwilliams where the other side of the twin's located.
Correct.
Just again showing you some more photos to familiarize the board with your property. A4, this is a view of the front of your home,
Yes.
correct? Basically taken from the intersection or almost the intersection of Rockingham and Fitzwilliams.
Yes.
Fence down here separating the two properties, the two twins.
Yes.
A5, photograph showing the side of your home from Rockingham,
Yes.
and also showing the garage with the basketball hoop on it.
Yes.
And you'll see a very narrow area between the home and the garage.
Yes.
According to town or county records, actually, the home was built in the early 1920s,
That's correct.
which predated zoning in Radnor Township, hence the nonconformity. A6, which the board has in front of them, again, is a view of the driveway. Now, this view, this is before you put on the addition, because it shows steps coming down where the driveway is located.
Yes.
And see if we can show a couple other photos here. A8 actually shows the addition. And this addition, it covered a landing, is that correct?
Yes.
There was existing landing that was non-conforming,
Yes.
and that is why you were granted the permit for it.
Correct.
And again, this one shows the back door coming out the back, not the side where the steps were originally. Are you using that back door right now today?
No.
Yep, you can't use it, right, because the steps would make it non-conforming, and I think you have it barred, don't you?
Yes, there's like 10 wooden bars all across the back.
But actually, the township did permit you to occupy the home.
Correct.
Even though we didn't have a second means of ingress and egress.
Yes.
And A9, it kind of shows where the former steps were located, which would have been permitted here, except for the fact now it steps to nowhere.
Correct.
I've marked, and I'll hand up to the board, we have a couple additional exhibits. First, let's get to the plan for a second here, if we can. Now, we have a number of nonconformities, as I mentioned in opening. We have the triangular property, correct?
Yes.
And actually, it's only really three-sided, one side in common with the twin, and then one side on Rockingham, and then the rear where the garage is located.
Correct.
I have, again, according to county records, the existing gross square footage of the entire residence, that would be all floors, is 1,344 square feet. Would you agree with that?
I would.
Pretty small.
Yes.
Okay. The home is set in the rear of the property, correct?
Correct.
Here's your building envelope that I'm outlining here. And the home is set in the rear of the existing home.
Correct.
It's non-conforming as to front yard setback, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And the garage actually appears to be right on the property line, the existing garage.
Yes, that's correct.
And it also was non-conforming in that the existing home, even before you built the addition, the existing home was closer than 10 feet to the garage as required by the code.
Correct.
I have pre-marked some additional exhibit packets. The first one I'll hand up. Who's keeping the file copy? So the first is A11, which we referenced previously, correct?
Correct.
That is being shown on the table right now. The next is A12, and is this the permit application for the addition?
Yes.
And you renovated the interior of the home, too.
Correct.
And noted on the permit application, enclosed porch to create powder room.
Correct.
So it was done?
Yes.
Was that done as a result of just minimal living space
Yes.
and having two young children?
Yes.
I'm going to show you what I've marked as A13. And is this a view from that space between your home and the garage to your neighbor?
Yes, it is.
And your neighbor actually has a deck similar to what you're going to be constructed right across from you.
Yes.
And This is not a great picture because I think it was taken through a screen on the first floor, but where the umbrella is that your neighbor's deck?
Yes, it is.
That area, you can see it kind of outlined there.
Yes.
And as we mentioned, the relief that we're requesting, you're intending to build the deck, and the deck will be closer to the garage than 10 feet, right?
Yes.
And also, actually, it's, even though it's between the garage and the home, it violates, since it's part of the home, it violates the rear yard setback requirement of the code as well. So that's why we're asking for two
Correct.
methods of relief in order to be safe. Have you spoken to your neighbors regarding this?
Yes, we've spoken with all of the neighbors directly around us, and all support us.
And you're only asking for the relief that I mentioned. There's no relief being requested for impervious coverage or building coverage or anything of that nature.
Correct.
That's all I have for now.
Any questions from the board?
Is the, I see a Bilco door, is that your basement access?
Yes.
For Kevin, is that, this looks like it's going to block that basement access. Will that be a problem?
When I was out at the site back in February or March, it was something that we talked about, and they were going to continue to maintain that access at that time. When I first learned of the application, I wanted to go out and review it, because it just on paper did not, at the time we didn't actually even have this type of survey. But there was consideration of providing access through the deck to the Bilco doors with a lift-up panel. I don't know if that's something that's still in play, or that it's absolutely necessary for them to have that. It may be more of a convenience thing.
We do plan to have that lift in the deck to be able to still access it for convenience purposes.
So how far, if you could show me on A11, the proposed, oh, actually, maybe I see it now. The proposed deck actually will go to the width of the house, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. And prior to the addition, that, I guess if you look at A9 with the original set of steps, can you explain how you would, where was the door, where was the original door?
So the original door was just right at the top of those steps here.
Maybe, let me see if
Was
the
it a
area.
landing and then you would pivot to the left to?
Yes,
You can
exactly.
see a little bit on A6, I believe. You see the steps for where the landing area was. And let me, I don't know if the aerial shows the landing area, but the addition covered the landing area. That's why it was permitted.
Yeah, okay. I just wanted to see, make sure I understood that. So the door,
Okay.
the original door was facing the same direction as the new door?
No.
No.
Yes.
Oh, wait.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes.
Sorry.
Because here's the.
Oh,
the
that.
steps.
Yes, right. Sorry.
Well, the door, yes.
Right. Okay. I don't have any other questions. Anyone else? No?
So I have requested the exhibits be made part of the record, please.
Without exception. Any public comment? Seeing none, do I have a board motion?
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman, I propose that the applicant, Ryan and Louise Bonner, be granted the relief requested from the provisions of Section 280-35A5 and 280-35A7, as stated in the application, consistent with the testimony and plans and other evidence presented here this evening.
Second.
Any discussion? Anyone have comments? No? All right, let's
Well,
take
this really is the definition of a rock and a hard place. So,
Fair. Is that that's a legal standard, of course. Yeah.
important?
Yeah. All right. Do we have a vote then? We'll start at the end. Bud?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
Aye.
I'm also in favor. Good luck with the project.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right. Just have to find my agenda. Okay, appeal number 3184, the applicant Adeyemi. I apologize in advance if I am mispronouncing your name. Adeyemi Biroj. How'd I do? Property located at 431 West Beech Tree Lane and zoned R4 residential. Applicants seek relief from section 280-115.2 of the code to allow a student rental in Unit B and also to allow 3 students to live in Unit B since it is a 3-bedroom unit. Good evening.
Good evening, Board. Yes, I swear. Adeyemi Aberoje.
How do I say your last name?
Aberoje.
Aberoje. All right, I'm going to try my best. Good evening.
Good evening.
Before we get started, I just have a couple of preliminary questions that I want to satisfy myself of. Is this a single-family home? You don't need that one. You can use that.
It's actually a multi-family home.
Okay, 2-family, I think, actually,
Yeah,
correct?
sorry, pardon me, 2 families.
Okay. And I guess you're looking for relief. Are you looking for a special exception, or are you asking for a variance tonight?
First of all, I would like to say that I had no prior knowledge about the regulations that actually guide the township. That was why. Because I received an email from one of the residents, Mrs. Katie, as forwarded to me by Mrs. Katie, pardon me, Katie Gleason, forwarded to me by Mr. Economites. Right. Yes. They say, I would like to look at my phone, pardon me, that it was, I will recap, that it was intentional. I was trying to evade the regulations of the township. I had no prior knowledge about how some things work. I just acquired the
That's fine.
property.
Our role tonight is to decide
Right.
if we can grant you a special exception,
Right.
or if you're asking for a variance, that you meet the legal standard for a variance. So that's why I'm asking what exactly. Quite frankly, I don't think you qualify for the special exception and that you would need a variance. And what you're going to have to articulate to us is each section that you need relief from in order to be approved for what you're looking for.
Okay. I would like probably if you can do this presentation at the next meeting, so that I can actually meet most of these regulations on this list in the month of September.
Okay, I'm sorry. Maybe I misunderstood you. Did you say you wanted to continue this to the next meeting? Is that what you said?
There are a few of these, because I was out of the country, I came back, and Kelvin did say I didn't actually indicate most of the items on this regulation on my appeal. So, and I'm seeking this board to pardon me, to be fully ready for the next meeting so that I can do thorough justice to most of the items on this list.
Okay. So we do not meet in August. The next meeting would be September.
Okay.
I don't know anything about that agenda, but yeah. So most likely it'll be on September, but the township will notify you of that. Do I need waiver of the 90 days, or because he's requesting?
It's his request to continue.
Yeah, okay. So just to formalize the request, then you're asking us to continue tonight's meeting until September, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, without objection. I think that's a good idea.
All right, sir.
Okay.
I appreciate it.
Thank you very much. We'll see you in September. I'm sorry.
Sorry, here we go. When the application came in, we did our normal review, and I reached out to Mr. Baroji, and by the time he came back in, everything had been advertised. And maybe this is more for Gus, my thought was that we're going to need specific sections and to advertise that, so this will more than likely need to be re-advertised in terms of the specific sections that relief will be needed from. And I just want to make sure that my assumption is correct, so then I can give guidance in terms of what we need to advertise, or ultimately what the applicant needs to request.
Yeah, I'll defer to solicitor. Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, may I, if you don't mind? Okay, Mr. Average, there's, as you stated, you're requesting the continuance. We can't, and the township can't guide you, nor can this board guide you as to exactly what you need to ask for. So I would highly recommend you seeking legal counsel to help you through this, especially for your appeal. As you saw yourself, the ordinance is rather lengthy. There's a lot there that you need. Right. So it would be important for you not to miss anything that you would need in order to be permitted for the use that you're asking for. Because the board can only grant what you asked for, and that might not even be enough for you to get the use that you need from the township. Right. So that's how you can get tripped up on this. That's just one of many ways that can happen. So I highly recommend you seek legal counsel. Okay. You've got time, obviously, before now and then it can be advertised. And if you even need more time, you could work with the township and getting even more time if you need it. Okay. But I highly recommend you do that, because we can't guide you as to what you need to ask for, what you can't ask for. You just have to come to us, make the request to the board, I should say, and then they can grant or deny whatever you're asking for. Okay?
Okay, sounds good.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank
All
you
right, we'll
both.
see you in September.
Yeah, see you.
That will need to be submitted by August 19th.
Okay. Yeah, sorry, I shouldn't guarantee September. We'll see you at the next, when you make it to the next agenda.
All right.
Okay.
See you.
Thank you very much. Okay,
I think a lot of the folks were here because of this.
no question. Yeah, we're going to lose most of our audience. Okay, appeal number 3185, the applicant Core Developers LLC, property located at 313 Conestoga Road and zoned R3 residential. The applicant seeks a variance from section 280-25.D1 to permit side yard setback of no less than 10 feet in width on each side and 22 feet in width, and 22 feet in aggregate width, where no less than 15 feet on each side and 35 feet in aggregate width is required. If necessary, variance from section 280-25.A to permit the continuation of the existing minimum lot width of 52 feet at the building line, where a minimum 70 feet is required, and any and all interpretations, special exceptions, variances, and our zoning relief deemed necessary at the time of the hearing. Hello.
Hi, good evening. Can you hear me? My name's Deborah Shulsky. I'm with the firm of Riley, Viper, Hahn, and Caligreco, here on behalf of the applicant. Also with me this evening is Ryan Alexacki on behalf of the applicant, and our civil engineer, Nick Vastardis. The underlying landowner is also in the audience as well. And just by way of some very brief overview before we get into the actual testimony and introduction of the evidence, I want to give you a little bit of summary. There is some history to this property, which you're probably aware of just from going through our application. The property is an approximately 12,000 square foot in size. It's located in the R3 zoning district. The property is uniquely situated in that it's a long and narrow lot, and it has a legally non-conforming lot width. The reason why that's important is because obviously your lot width corresponds with your setbacks, your ability to comply with the setbacks. If we had the required lot width of 70 feet, we wouldn't even be before you this evening. In addition, the courts have recognized that the lot with a non-conforming condition of the property is in and of itself a unique condition for purposes of supporting the grant of a hardship. Now, this particular property did have a home on it at one time. It was burnt down back in around 1999, 2000. The landowner came before this board back in 2006, same landowner who's in the audience this evening, seeking the same exact relief that we are seeking this evening. At that time, he was requesting setback relief to allow the reconstruction at that home. After this board granted that application, he then proceeded forward with all his applicable permits and approvals through the township. He actually went so far as to receive a grading permit, posted all his financial security, was ready to put a shovel in the ground, and then unfortunately we were hit with the onset of the 2008 recession at that time, so the house was never built. Fast forward, another applicant was before you back in 2021, seeking a variance relief to reconstruct a home. That home was larger in size than what this board previously approved, and therefore the board denied that application because they thought what was being sought was a larger home and it was not the minimum relief necessary. My client is back before you this evening to propose the same exact home that was previously approved by this board back in 2006 in terms of the size of the home. The building footprint is the same, the relief is the same, the location of the home is the same. In fact, the architect is even the same. The architect who prepared the design at that time back in 2006 is the same architect that my client is using for this home. So aesthetically, the home is essentially going to look like it was when this board previously approved that. So we believe that the evidence will support there are no changed conditions to this property. It's still the same long and narrow lot. It's still the same non-conforming lot width that existed back in 2006. And therefore, we believe the evidence will support that the applicant is entitled to the same relief that this board previously granted. Now, with that long-winded introduction, I have two witnesses that I'll be presenting that we can swear in.
Ryan, R-Y-A-N, Alexaki, A-L-E-X-A-K-I.
Nicholas Vastardis, V-A-S-T-A-R-D-I-S.
Okay, and may I approach? I've seen pre-marked exhibits for the board.
Please, sure.
Thank you.
Oh, do you have an,
I'll put this one in.
okay. Do you have an extra set?
I do, actually.
Okay. Thanks.
Mr. Alexaki, could you state your name and address for the record?
Ryan Alexaki, 6 Poplar Street, Conshohocken, Pennsylvania.
And what is your affiliation with the applicant Core Developers LLC?
Company.
And can you provide some brief background to the board about your company and what you do?
We construct a variety of different residential and commercial projects in Delaware, Chester, and Montgomery County. A lot of them being this specific type of lot, an infill lot that in an existing neighborhood.
And I'm showing you what's marked as Exhibit A. 5, is that a copy of the deed, evidence in the ownership of the property?
Yes,
And Exhibit A6, a copy of the redacted agreement of sale?
it is.
Evidence in that you are the equitable owner of the property.
Correct.
And is Exhibit A7 a letter of authorization from the owner of the property allowing you to proceed with the zoning approval?
It is.
And again, the owner's present this evening as well, correct?
Yes.
Okay, I'm referring to Exhibit A8, Sheet 1, which is the area I'll have before you. Can you just identify the location of the property and some of the surrounding area for the board?
The property is located at 313 Conestoga Road. As Debbie mentioned, it is approximately 50 feet in width at the front and 61 feet in the back. It is surrounded by a variety of size lots, many of them being consistent in width and depth. It has a significant number of the homes in the surrounding area that would be 30 feet or larger, many of them with the Victorian elements that the HARB would be looking for.
Okay, and with respect to the property, the subject property for the hearing this evening, are there any unique characteristics of the property?
It's longer than it is wide, gently sloping from front to back.
And is it your understanding that the lot width is legally non-conforming?
Yes.
And are you aware that in 2006, the zoning hearing board previously approved a variance seeking a minimum side yard setback of 10 feet and 22 feet in the aggregate?
Yes.
And that decision is marked in the board's package as Exhibit A10. And referring to Exhibit A11, which is a grading permit, is it your understanding that the township subsequently issued a permit to allow the reconstruction of the home that was previously on the property?
There was a grading permit approved and a cash escrow posted for the necessary improvements.
And do you know why the house was not rebuilt at that time?
Excuse me. In 2008, obviously the housing market in general collapsed in all areas, not specific just to Radnor. It was put on pause and then continued through until the economic recovery, which would have happened, early 2000.
And is it your understanding that in 2021, another applicant came forth and sought variance relief that was denied by this board?
Correct.
And was the home in that particular application larger than the original application?
Almost 25% larger from a housing footprint. Had a front load. He was presenting a parking in the front with a front load garage, where the original application had the detached garage and the parking in the rear.
Did you direct your consultant to prepare Exhibit A12, which is a zoning exhibit prepared by Vistardis Consulting Engineers?
Yes.
And the next witness is going to explain the scope of the proposal in more detail, but can you generally explain for the board what is proposed as part of this application?
So it's identical in essence to the previously approved plan. It's a single-family detached dwelling, approximately 30 feet in width, approximately 1,500 square feet per floor for the first 2 floors. It has a detached two-car garage in the rear. Will meet the applicable stormwater management and necessary tree replacement. The home was designed with a Victorian element to match the surrounding area.
Okay, and I'm referring your attention to Exhibit A13. Is that a concept rendering of what you're proposing for the architectural design of this particular home?
Correct. So this is virtually identical in scale and style to the previously approved home. We changed some of the exterior materials but kept the Victorian element, namely the tower and the dirt to the right. You can see the AZAC and/or Boral paneling that is on that. Clapboard siding, stone, natural materials. We'll look to take recommendations from HARB, if and when we get to that point for items or changes that they might see. But this is, from a flooring or floor standpoint, an exterior concept, the same plan that was presented, approved in 2006.
And are you familiar with other homes that are currently under construction in Radnor Township?
Yes.
And in your opinion, is the proposed home among the smallest single-family homes planned for development within a 1-mile radius of this property?
Of all the proposed homes and/or sold homes that I am aware of in the past year, there is one single-family detached home that is smaller than this. It is a 3-story dwelling, looks more like a townhouse, would not meet the criteria of the HARB district, is not buildable to a Victorian era or style home, and I don't think personally meets the necessary needs of today's families for a single family home. It was a significantly smaller lot that they were attempting to adapt to. The vast majority of homes within a 1-mile radius of this area are significantly larger, more in style to the home that is directly to the right of us, which would be a traditional 2.5-story colonial you would see in Radnor today.
That's all the questions I have.
Any board questions?
Yeah, I have one question, and Kevin, maybe you can weigh in on this as well. Is this property located within the HARB?
It is.
I would have to check.
Okay.
Yeah, we believe that it is, and we know that assuming assuming this board makes a favorable approval, we would obviously have to go before the HARB as part of the permitting process.
Thank you.
I have trouble understanding how this home relates to the neighboring properties. Do you have either a rendering or a picture or something that shows us?
We have our site plan, and our engineer is going to testify and, describe exactly where the location of the building is going on the site plan.
But are there homes on either side of this home?
There are.
But
There's
they're
an
not in the
aerial.
rendering?
They are not in my rendering, no.
No. Let me
The home directly to the right of me would be classified as more French than Victorian.
I guess you can't see. I mean,
You
this
know,
is just-
it's twice the size from a building footprint. It has a large turret in the center of the building, a garage in the front. Directly in the surrounding area, there are many Victorian-style homes, which would be, if you're familiar with a Victorian-style home, many of them have a multitude of colors, a multitude of exteriors, corbels, brackets, trim details, steep roof lines, metal features. This home was designed and presented previously to the board specific that it has a Victorian element to it versus some of the more traditional 2.5-story colonial homes that you would see, in the surrounding area. This would be what I would classify as a classic kind of infill Victorian home for this district.
Can you speak to, and it may be a better question for your engineer, but can you speak to, this home I think you're proposing is 30 feet wide, which leaves 11 feet on each side yard setback. Can you speak to the width of the home if you were to come into compliance at 15 feet and what effect that would have?
So a 15-foot wide home, and I don't have the answer, it would be an answer for Kevin, but most municipalities have, even for a townhouse development, a minimum width of 20 feet. Part of that reason is, in the 2018 code, right, we have to meet specific requirements, specific door widths, hallway widths, ingress, egress, fire safety, all of those applicable codes that a home that was under construction 100 years ago just simply did not have to meet. But if you think of a 15-foot wide home that is 35 feet tall, for lack of a better word, I mean, it would look like a birdhouse. It's just not really, it is not something you would classify as meeting the character of the neighborhood, probably not suitable to today's, family element of home, 3 or 4 bedroom, what have you.
That answers my question. That was good. Thank you. Anyone else? No? Okay.
That's all the questions of that witness. Mr. Vastardis, could you state your name and address for the record, please?
Sure, Nicholas Vastardis, 29. There we go. Nicholas Vastardis, 29 Harvey Lane, Malvern.
And Mr. Vastardis, your qualifications and educational background and professional experience is marked in your CV, which we have in the package as Exhibit A14. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And I know that you said you were previously accepted as an expert before this board. It may have been at least a decade ago, but it was at one time. Is that correct?
Yes.
Mr. Vastardis is happy to go into his credentials if the board would like, but I would suggest that, without disclosing my age, that he's been one of my witnesses for a number of years now.
Yeah, no, as long as Exhibit 14 includes his qualifications, we would accept him as
Okay. Thank you.
without objection as an expert. Thank you.
Thank you.
The only thing missing is your registration number.
Mr. Restartis, you heard Mr. Alexacki describe the property itself in terms of the existing conditions and the proposed redevelopment for the property, correct?
That's correct.
And referring to Exhibit A2, Sheet 2 of that, which I believe is that sheet, is the existing nonconforming lot width of the subject property consistent with the other lot widths in the immediate area?
Yeah, the subject property is in green. Guess it looks like green up there. And the pink, purple ones surrounding it are all non-conforming widthwise. Across the street's a different zone, but they're all non-conforming widthwise as well.
Yeah, just for clarity, you said A2, it's A8.
I apologize.
Just make sure the record's
Yeah.
clean. Thank you.
Thank you. And you heard Mr. Alexacki describe what's being proposed for the project as well, correct?
Correct.
And you agree with his description of the proposal?
I do.
And your office was responsible for the preparation of Exhibit A12, which is the zoning exhibit dated July 11, 2024, correct?
Correct.
And does that plan accurately depict what's being proposed?
It does.
And referring to Exhibit A12, can you please describe in detail what the development is proposed as part of this application?
Sure, it's a single-family home about 30 feet wide with a detached garage, has a driveway, sidewalk. We're showing a stormwater basin for now and all that.
And is the home, in your opinion, generally consistent with the size of the homes in the neighborhood?
It is.
And does Exhibit A12 reflect the same plan that was previously approved by this board in terms of the location of the home, size of the house, the garage location, as well as the setbacks?
It does.
And could you explain for the board what the actual setbacks are for each of the property boundaries?
Sure. So we're asking for a 10-foot setback on the one side and 12 on the other for an aggregate of 22.
And that's the same relief that was previously sought?
Correct.
And other than the relief that's before this board this evening, does the plan otherwise comply with all applicable area and bulk requirements, including building coverage and impervious coverage requirements?
Yep, no other relief is necessary.
And in your opinion, are there any changed circumstances to the property from when the board previously approved this application in 2006 to the present conditions?
No.
And are you familiar with the applicable requirements for variance as set forth both in the Radnor Township zoning ordinance and the five-part test under the municipality's planning code?
Yes.
In your opinion, does the application comply with those applicable standards?
Yes.
And just walking you through those very quickly, in your opinion, is the size, scope, and extent of the variance request consistent with the township comprehensive plan, especially considering that this is a proposed use in this particular zoning district and that there was previously a home on this property?
Yes.
And in your opinion, is the single-family home on a lot that was previously a single-family home consistent with the historic architecture and size of the surrounding homes?
It is.
And do you believe that the use is suitable with respect to the traffic and highway in the area and provides for adequate access to the property?
Yes, it's minimal foot traffic.
And do you believe there's any impact with respect to public infrastructure such as public services, water and sewer, police, and fire protection?
It's de minimis based on a single-family home.
And in your opinion, is the fact that the property is legally nonconforming with respect to the lot width, as well as the fact that it's a long and narrow lot, a unique physical conditions that cause a hardship?
Yes.
And given that the property cannot be developed to meet the minimum lot width because of the existing nonconforming condition, would you agree that there is no impact with respect to the character of the neighborhood?
I agree with that, yes.
And do you believe that the proposed 30-foot wide house is consistent with the character of the neighborhood?
I do, yes.
And given the fact that the home is going to be compliant with the building coverage, maximum building coverage, as well as a maximum impervious coverage, and is consistent with the homes in the surrounding area, would you agree that what is being sought is the minimum relief necessary?
I do, yes.
That's all the questions I have.
Any questions of the board?
Yeah, I've got a couple questions. And this is really a continuation of Mr. Hirsch's question, I think, that he raised a bit earlier. This is not, I have to tell you, the easiest plan to read, but none of these frequently are. So in terms of the relationship between the proposed structure and the adjoining properties, the front door faces Conestoga Road, is that correct?
That's correct.
And the drive to reach the garage at the rear will pass by the house, I guess, on the, southeasterly side of the house?
Northwesterly.
Southwesterly? Okay.
Northwest, but
Northwesterly, okay. So if I'm heading west on Conestoga, I will pass the front door and then turn into the drive that will take me behind the structure, is that correct?
that's correct.
So in terms of the adjoining properties, the east, again, if I were driving west on Conestoga, the house, the neighbor that I would reach first, I seem to recall that the front door for that property does not face Conestoga, but instead faces away from Conestoga. I'm again just trying to get a sense of what it's going to look like if the project were to proceed. So that the adjoining property is, the back of that property is facing the subject property, is what I'm
Yeah,
asking.
yeah.
Okay. And then on the other side of the property, the subject property, I don't know what the orientation of that house is to Conestoga Road, but I'm, again,
That one faces straight out to Conestoga.
it faces straight out? Okay. So obviously it's a thin lot, slightly tight quarters, but that drive is going to be between, well, probably run right up along near the property line
Pretty close, yeah.
to get to the rear
Right.
garage. Okay, thank you.
I guess I'm going to ask you a similar question as I did to Mr. Alazaki. I guess what consideration was given to reduce the width of the house in order to reduce the relief on the side yard setbacks?
I think I'd let Mr. Alexakis answer that one.
Yeah, he answered my question. That's fine. I don't need you to answer it a second time. You did already. Yeah, I was curious to hear
And
Mr. Vistardi's take on it.
Alternating opinion. I mean, the only other thing that I would say specific to the previous question regarding the door orientation, why was the selection originally made in 2006 to get the driveway down the side and the detached garage in the back? So if I was to reference the 21 plan that was rejected by this board because it was a larger footprint, the garage was in the house. So by default, that means the house has to get significantly deeper in overall size, right? Like you can't put, because the envelope is so small, I can't put the garage through the front of the house without going deeper on the overall. So the 2021 plan veered from this plan, garage, two-car garage in the front, house got 20 some odd feet deeper, became a much larger home than what we're presenting.
I don't know if that quite answers my question, but that's okay.
Now, let me re-ask your question. Maybe, Mr. Vistardis, do you frequently work on plans involving residential properties that are thinner than the one presented here?
Occasionally, yeah, in other townships, sure. I mean,
Detached houses specifically?
yeah, single family detached, yeah. I mean, with the 30-foot width, it's, like Ryan said, it's not going to be a birdhouse. It looks a lot better perspective-wise.
So this plan was addressing the project as proposed to you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what, so I'm just going to ask somewhat of a follow-up to that then. Was there consideration or discussions with you and your client to say 25 feet? Or, in other words, what considerations were given so that the 22 aggregate setback that you're asking for was 25 or somewhat closer to 35 under the code?
It's more of a usability of the house itself and the layout, what you can get in there with 30 compared to 25. 5 feet is a big difference.
All right. The driveway did the original home, the one that was built however long ago, the one that burned, that home had a driveway, I assume?
Yes.
And where was the location of that driveway,
Ooh,
if you know?
that I don't know.
Okay. Any other questions? No?
I just have one quick follow-up. With respect to the proposed 30-foot wide house, do you believe that that size is more in keeping with the character of the neighborhood, given some of the surrounding homes in that immediate vicinity?
I do, yes.
That's all the questions I have.
Okay. Anything else?
No, I would just request that our exhibits be accepted into the record.
Without exception. Any public comment? Come on up. Good evening.
Joseph, J-O-S-E-P-H, Romer, R-O-E-M-E-R.
Good evening, Mr. Romer.
Good evening, Board. Nice to see many of you again. I was here back in 2021 at this same hearing with actually a side variance that was slightly more beneficial to us than this variance. While they're saying the footprint of the home is different, the actual variance is worse for us than the last home. It was 22 feet. This one is that one was 22.6 feet. This is 22 feet. So they've actually taken a proposal and made it worse than you rejected last time, asking for a larger variance than they asked for last time to the code. Respect that the building footprint is different, but this is a worse proposal from a variance perspective. It is a significant deviation, as I would state last time, a 64% deviation from the code. So this is not a minor deviation they're asking for. It is a significant deviation. As well, I think people keep referencing the original proposal that went in front of this board and was approved. We've read the transcript of that. We've actually made a public records request to find if we can get the footprint of the home that was in existence prior to it being burned down. There is no public record of the footprint of that home. We filed it with a Radnor. We've gotten a response back from Radnor saying they have no record of it. So the 30 by 30 information that's being presented several times about this house is nothing more than a person saying, that's what we believe it was. So there's no evidence to support that it was a 30 by 30 home. And in fact, that person stated in that record, most of the homes surrounding it were 30 by 30, and the home directly adjacent to it is not 30 by 30. So it is smaller than that footprint. You've asked several times about the houses adjacent to it. This road sits next to that house. I believe that house is 311. Next to it, they actually have if you look at that property, it's very close to that property line. It's actually pushed as a deviation closer to that. They have a fence running there. So that driveway will actually run probably about a foot away from their fence and probably about 5 or 6 feet away from there, actually, where they put the trash out on the side door. They have a side door on that house right there next to the driveway. So that driveway position and how close it is, both houses now are getting closer on both sides of that. So they already have a deviation. It's close on that side. It's a very bad place to put a driveway right next to that home. I wish he was here. We talked to him. He just couldn't make it tonight. He's not in favor of this either, so that's Jeremy as well. There are actually several properties very close to this property that are smaller than 30 by 30 that we keep referencing. It's commensurate with a home. The property actually 309, which is our adjacent property, is significantly smaller. 311 is significantly smaller. There's several on Runnymede that are significantly smaller than 30 feet as well. Last time, a woman came in who was a neighbor across the street at 246. She made comments about this home that was previously here, saying it was, I quote, small and faces sideways and conformed to the dimensions of the lot. So it was a significantly smaller home than most people are stating. I think that's the core of it. Again, this is not the minimum that they can be asking for, so I'm not objecting to their right to build a home on this. What I'm saying is they have yet again not met the minimum criteria to build a viable home, and there are plenty of homes no more than 3 or 4 lots away that are smaller than 30 by 30 that are aligned with the neighborhood and in line with what we would expect. Our neighbor's house just to the right of us is a beautiful house, and it is significantly smaller than 30 by 30.
Remind me your address again, I'm sorry.
317 Conestoga Road.
Thank you.
Yep. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else?
I do. Baron Gemmer, Baron Gemmer. Thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening. First off, I'm not seeking party status, so I'll get that out of the way. Both our rental and our residence are about 1,200 feet from this, so I do 1,200. Excuse me, let me about 1,200 feet. I also will agree with the previous speaker. Perfect. There's a right to build here. I'm also going to speak to the minimum relief necessary, which I think the board has been getting at quite a bit. Back, in addition to the denial that was referred to for this property in June of 2021, I spoke at a June 2017 zoning hearing board meeting for 307 Conestoga. Very similar situation. The board also turned that down. At that time, one of the things I made note of is there are a number of houses that are turned sideways, so that the 25 feet, if the front faces the side as opposed to the front, is not out of the character with a lot of those buildings. If you look at the opening narrative of the application, the last sentence says the surrounding properties are zoned R3 and R5 residential. That, to me, gave me a clue to also say, well, where should we look to the minimum relief necessary? R4, for example, is I think, a good guide for this, because R4, the minimum width of the building line is 55, and this property is 52 and change, I believe. And so you can look at the side yards for that. The aggregate is 30, and the minimum is 12. And so if it was a conforming R4 lot, I don't think anybody would be complaining that you could build a legitimate detached single-family home there. That's even bigger than R5 particular properties. So given that this property is 3 feet less wide at the building width than a conforming R4 property, perhaps the appropriate relief is 3 feet less than what R4 says, which would be 27, which would end up putting you at 25 for the width of a building, because the 52 minus the 27 there. And then the minimum on any one side would be 10.5 or 11 if you want to split that, depending how they go. But I would look to R4 because this is pretty close to an R4 lot, and giving them the relief of 3 feet from what the R4 dimensions are would be able to build in a footprint that a conforming R4 lot would be able to build in. So that's, I'll stay if you have questions, but.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Any other public comment? Okay, seeing none. Do I have a motion?
I guess I'm the motion guy. Mr. Chairman, I would I would propose that the applicant be granted the relief requested from section 280-25D1 to permit side yard setback of no less than 10 feet in width on each side and 22 feet in aggregate width. In addition, I don't know that. I'm just going to stick with that. I'm sorry. The relief to be consistent with the plans and testimony presented here this evening.
Is there a second? Second. Discussion?
I'm on board with this is too much relief. We can give them less relief and they can still have a very successful project. The house could be reoriented, and certainly clever architect could make it look good. I mean, one of the concerns you get into is, we described it as a birdhouse. I don't think a few feet is going to make it a birdhouse personally. So anyway, I'm not going to vote in favor of this.
I found that the presentation didn't really give me enough information to understand how this residence would affect the neighbors. And I think that when you make the presentation to us, it would be really helpful to have either the plans, the renderings, the drawings that show how this property fits in with the two properties on either side. And so I have trouble approving what you're asking for without fully understanding that the neighbors would not be harmed by what you would come up with, so I'm not going to vote in favor of it either.
I don't know if it's appropriate for me to suggest this in the middle of your motion, but we would be willing to continue the hearing and come back to be able to provide some additional plans to address some of the concerns that some of the board members raised.
Yeah, just 1 second. Yeah, I guess on the continuance request, right, then we would withdraw the motion. That makes sense.
You haven't made a decision.
Right. Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I'd be happy to withdraw my motion if the applicant is of a mind that it would entertain modification to the proposal to address some of the concerns that the board's expressed so far.
I mean, we can't, because your original motion was to grant it. Right.
Yeah, we
motion-
always make it
okay,
in the
okay.
affirmative so we don't get confused when we vote. Well, that's primarily
Okay.
for me.
Well, we're happy to come back and to provide some
Well-
additional plans.
Let me make this suggestion. I'm not thrilled with my motion either. So doing a little quick math, if there's a chance to modify what you're looking to do, I'd be fine with withdrawing the motion.
It's up to you as the applicant. We can continue for certain.
Yeah. I mean, I had also presented as part of our, prior to the hearing, a memorandum of law. I don't know if the members had an opportunity to review that. I know that a number of you are very familiar with the law, but, the law is pretty clear that when you have a non-conforming lot, it is a uniqueness in of itself. And in this particular instance, the board already found that there was a unique condition to the property. They found that it met the five-part test for granting of a variance, that it was the minimum relief necessary back in 2006, and we believe there have not been any changed circumstances to justify a change in the position by the board.
Different
If the composition of the board was consistent over time, that might be an argument that we could entertain. But frankly, time has passed, and since the time of I believe, that earlier decision, certainly a neighboring property was constructed whose front door does not face Conestoga Road. And that's a very, very successful property from the sense that I get driving by it 3 or 4 times a week, that property figured a way of working with peculiarities that were presented by the lot and moved forward. So the notion that you couldn't build a structure whose front door does not face Conestoga Road but faces another direction, and then conform the property or change the plan in such a way that it minimizes the relief that's being requested, I think is a non-starter, at least from where I'm coming from. So sensing that you're not interested in my withdrawing the motion, I'm just going to vote against my motion. And that's 3.
Yep.
I wanted to ask, I did not hear that you discussed this plan with the neighbors and how many neighbors supported it and how many neighbors didn't. I think Mr. Romer mentioned that one of his neighbors isn't here but didn't support it. Are there other neighbors that you've talked to that are supportive or are not supportive?
We're not aware of any. I mean, we did
You're
send
not
out.
aware of any what?
We're not aware of any neighbors that are in support or not in support,
So
other
did
than
you-
what was.
Did you discuss it with any of the neighbors?
We sent out the notices that we're required to send out under your code and by law. We have not heard, nobody contacted me from those notices.
So you didn't reach out proactively to show them the plan and to get their comments about how it works with their property?
We did not.
Okay.
We
thank
did
you.
review the transcripts from the original hearing, and there was no concerns with it at that time.
What do you want to do?
Okay, I guess
Okay.
we'll take a vote.
All right, we'll
We'll
take a vote.
move
John?
forward.
Nay.
Bud? I'm also a nay. Resolution, the application is denied. Thank you. Okay, appeal number 3186, the applicant Wicklow Unit Owners Association, property located at Wicklow Court and zoned R5 residential. Applicant seeks to install a 6-foot high fence. You all right, Norma? Oh, yeah, okay. Applicant seeks to install a 6-foot high fence on its property fronting on Conestoga Road. The zoning code, section 280-109A, permits 6-foot high fences in all zoning districts except in the R4 and R5 zoning districts. A fence erected in the front yard setback shall not exceed 4 feet. Applicant seeks a variance from section 280-109A of the code to permit a 6-foot high fence in the front yard setback facing Conestoga Road or such other zoning relief required by this application and the exhibits attached here too. Good evening.
Evening, Nick Cornelia representing the applicant. This is another one of those fence applications that you've seen before in the R4 and R5 zoning district in Radnor Township. For whatever reason, you're only permitted to have a 4-foot high fence in the front yard setback, whereas all other zoning districts, you're permitted to have a 6-foot high fence. This particular property, Wicklow, you're probably familiar with it, it actually borders on 3 streets. Where the fence we're asking to be constructed is a short stretch on Conestoga Road next to several commercial properties. As you go down West Wayne Avenue, it also fronts on West Wayne, and then when you make the turn on that little road, if you're going, I guess it would be east on West Wayne, make that, the next right is Owens, and it actually fronts on Owens Lane as well. Unbeknownst to me, actually, there's a public park on the Wicklow property that borders Owens that Wicklow Homeowners Association is responsible for maintaining. So what we're doing here, you'll see by the photographs, we have arborvitae growing on Conestoga Road. It's impinging on the sidewalk. It's not really providing adequate buffer from the commercial properties on Conestoga Road, the traffic on Conestoga Road, and the busyness of Conestoga Road. So what we are requesting here this evening is to install a 6-foot high fence instead of a 4-foot high fence. The fence obviously is outside of the right-of-way. I'm told that it's approximately 2 feet from the existing sidewalk. You have a sidewalk in that area. I guess when Wicklow developed it, they were required to put a sidewalk in. It's about the only place that has a sidewalk. But there is a sidewalk there, and that's where the arborvitae are located. Proposal was to remove those arborvitae, to put a 6-foot fence that you'll see a picture of in that location, and then back it up with additional landscaping as well. 2 witnesses, Skip Kunda, who's president of the Homeowners Association and resides at Wicklow, as well as Mike, who's actually the resident most, or one of the residents most affected, Mike Swar, one of the residents most affected by the development, by the fence, and Conestoga Road. Skip.
I do. Well, everybody calls me Skip, but it's Walter Kunda, Kunda.
Skip, you can sit down. Forgive me for calling you Skip, but I've known you that way for 40, 50 years.
I've preferred it for the last 72 years.
Okay, all right. Where do you live?
7 Wicklow Court.
And do you have a position with the Wicklow Homeowners Association?
I'm co-president with my wife. She's actually a co-president.
And the Homeowners Association was established around 2007.
Yes.
And actually, you know, at one point, it's now zoned R5, but at one point was this development actually zoned commercial, like the rest of the development kind of surrounding it?
I believe it was Zone C1.
I've marked as an exhibit A2, and this is like just a portion of the declaration showing that Wicklow is a condominium association associated with the Wicklow development. Is that right? A2?
Yes. Yes.
Now I'm going to show you what I've marked as A3, and this is the aerial of the property. And to get bearings, here's Conestoga Road, intersection with Conestoga and West Wayne, going down West Wayne, and then the turn, as we mentioned, into Owens.
Yes.
And in between there is the Wicklow development, where you see Wicklow Court, as well as some commercial buildings that are in front of it facing Conestoga Road on the corner of Conestoga and West Wayne.
Correct.
And then as you proceed further down Conestoga Road, you have other commercial development. Is that accurate?
Yes.
And then across the street, I know that we have the
Graythorn Woods.
Graythorn Woods. I had mentioned a public park in this area here, as we front on Owens.
It's a sidewalk between West Wayne and Owens, and 2 park benches, and we mow the grass and maintain the shrubs on the far side of the sidewalk as a decorative border.
And what you're proposing is to put a fence approximately in this area here that I'm showing on by the pointer.
Yeah, running up to the corner of the building
Nail
here.
salon, over the nail.
No.
From Keith, I believe starting in Keith Martin's property there,
Yeah.
Keith Martin Electrician,
I don't know the address, but yes.
and then running to the nail salon.
Right, correct. Well, Mike has more detail on that.
And no other fencing is being proposed except for that.
No other fencing, no.
And just briefly, what type of road is Conestoga Road?
Busy, incredibly busy.
And you've
Always under renovation and construction by public utilities.
Okay. Let's give any more questions for Skip, and I'll call Mike.
Any questions?
The only question I have was why?
Yep, Mike can get into that, yeah. Mainly is privacy, the busyness of the road, safety, security, but again, Mike can testify to that.
Skip in.
Huh?
Pardon?
Keep you in on the property.
Well, 7 is not on Conestoga, thank goodness, but I'm supportive of the idea that we have to do something to that end of the property. The existing traffic has probably increased since the property was built.
And I'm sorry, so I'm clear, the existing arborvitae are coming out?
The existing, and again, I'm stealing Mike's thunder here, but
Oh, then, yeah, I'll ask of the appropriate person then.
he has, well, I'm appropriate, but he's more appropriate.
Fair enough.
Mike, if you want to.
Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth?
I do.
State your full name and spell it.
Michael Swar, S-W-A-R-R.
Mike, where do you live?
I live at
number 3 Wicklow.
I'm showing you A6, and if you can, and just for bearings, Conestoga Road in this area, you see some plantings, arborvitae, West Wayne Avenue here,
Correct.
and then Owens Lane here.
Correct.
And you're in
I am
which,
number 3 right here.
on kind of the corner right here?
Mhm.
Okay. And where you are, and your proposal is to remove the arborvitae in this area on Conestoga Road?
Yes, not because we want to,
I'm showing you.
but we need
A4.
to. Their arborvitae have a 15 to 20, these emerald arborvitae have a 15 to 20-year lifespan, useful lifespan. They're in their 17th year. And if you know anything about them, they grow up and they start to splay, especially when wet snow hits them. They splay, they snap. We've had wind blow a couple over. We've lost probably 10 of them already. And so the area is getting a little spotty, and the coverage is getting very poor down near the base. The greenery grows up. They start to die at the base. So when we're sitting in our living room, we look right out onto Conestoga Road, and they have to come out. And we've talked about a number of alternatives, but we think a fence is the best long-term alternative with some decorative plantings on the inside.
I put out A4 and A5. Can you tell the board what they represent?
So A4 is the view from Conestoga Road, looking at numbers 1 on the left and number 2 on the right. We would be tucked back in here. There's a big maple tree right here, which is nice, and it stays. Some of these look good. They're on the southwestern side. That's the better side for them to grow on. They look less good on the inside. We've had to strap a number of these together with the plastic tree strapping. I bought several spools of that because they do splay, and we try to tie them up, which really doesn't help their growth.
How does this work as a buffer?
It's an okay visual buffer, but it's getting worse over time. It's not a very good sound buffer either.
I noticed there's some opening in the vegetation on A5.
That's where we lost a couple of these arborvitae, and we lost a few more down to the left here that you can't see.
Have you and the other neighbors there have had issues with the noise and privacy associated with the arborvitae?
Unfortunately, no, Unit 1, Unit 2, and Unit 3 are
I'll
living
show you,
rooms.
I'll show you what's been marked as A7.
Okay.
In a little better picture. Go ahead.
Unit 1, Unit 2, and Unit 3, our living rooms and kitchens are all facing Conestoga Road, and our patios are on the backs of the units, and they face Conestoga Road. In the case of number 2, we barely have 24 feet between that patio and Conestoga Road, and that's where you see the gap in the shrubberies there.
And looking at A7, I noticed you do have the fence line here, and approximately how many feet is that from the actual sidewalk?
2 feet, approximately 2 feet.
Are you also planning some additional buffering behind the fence?
Yes.
Is that indicated on A7?
Is this A7?
Yes.
We haven't hired the landscape architect yet until we get approval, Nick, but we've tried to draw in some little islands of greenery that we hope to plant on our side of the fence. We are keeping the maple tree, obviously the red bud here, the honey locust here, and the dogwood in the corner.
I'm showing you what's been marked as A8. You tell the board what A8 represents.
A8 is the fence that we are hoping to install. We've opted for the spindle top because we think it's a little more sophisticated looking. It looks less like a barricade and in keeping with the Wicklow look.
Now, you're asking for a fence that's 6 foot high instead of the permitted 4 foot high. Why do you need the 2 additional feet?
For some of the reasons we've talked about, when we're sitting in our living rooms, we can see the cars passing by constantly on Conestoga Road. A 4-foot fence will permit us to see about half the car passing by. We need the 6-foot fence to buffer the sight line. We think it'll buffer the noise coming off Conestoga Road better. And then passersby on the sidewalk here, the 4-foot fence will do nothing. They'll be looking right over into our backyards and at our patios.
And that's the only relief we're requesting here is the height of the fence.
That's it. Yeah.
Okay, it's just outside the right-of-way, it's outside the sidewalk.
That's correct.
No issues, okay.
And I don't know if you pointed that out before, Nick, but these arborvitae have gotten way overgrown. And in some cases, they encroach on about half the sidewalk. If we were to cut those away, we'd have no greenery down here, so we'd have a couple of toothpicks. The other thing we hope to improve on is Unit 1 here looks right down onto the trash enclosure for the commercial building next to us. The fence will continue down behind that trash enclosure, but we are going to plant a row of Thuja green giant arborvitae here that can get 20 feet tall, so that'll help buffer Unit 1 from the second floor and the third floor from viewing the trash enclosure.
Thank you. That's all I have at this time.
Any board questions?
Yeah, I've got a couple questions. So the arborvitae did not just happen onto the property. I suspect that as part of the saldo process perhaps or otherwise for when this development was constructed, that buffer was either perceived to be appropriate or required. I don't know. I'm not a saldo guy, but
We have the original plans from 2007 or just prior, and there was a buffer planned along Conestoga as well as along the commercial parking lot behind units 3, 4, and 5. The trees that were planted were not what was in the plan. They were calling for japonicas, which are single leader or single trunk, less prone to collapsing. I think money might have been tight. I don't know. I wasn't there at the time, but the emerald arborvitae are multi-leader, multi-trunked, and if you're familiar with them, they get top-heavy and they fall.
Now, you are intending to proceed to the Shade Tree Commission with a landscape plan on this. Is that accurate?
I assume so with
I
your
believe,
guidance.
Skip, I think we talked about that previously, that we would have to go to Shade Tree.
Yeah, probably.
I'm sorry. The reason I ask is that to the extent that a buffer was required, and now instead of a buffer, we're getting a 6-foot high fence, partly for privacy, partly for sound, although I noted that the top of that fence is some half open, half closed, so query the ability
Trade-off.
Query the ability to block a lot of sound. I'm just concerned that what was I'm sorry, my watch keeps going off. I'm concerned that what was required as part of the original development of the property is now being undone and is being replaced with what can be best, perhaps most charitably described as not a real attractive fence. So I'm just curious as to whether consideration was given to finding more appropriate natural screening as opposed to a fence.
And John, I know that this was discussed actually, and I'm looking at an email exchange that I had with Steve Norsini, and now this is me saying this, just so telling Steve that I reviewed the approved recorded plan and not see any requirement for maintenance of a buffer. Wicklow is zoned R5. I'm sorry. I reviewed the approved recorded plan, did not see any requirements for maintenance of a buffer. Wicklow is zoned R5. R5 only requires a buffer in the side and rear yards, which abut residential districts. Wicklow plans to place a 6-foot fence. And then my comment is, since it is a front yard on Conestoga Road, no buffer is required. On the side yard, the polished nails is zone C1, even though not required, Wicklow will maintain the buffer on that side. And of course, I said, of course, any removal of trees will have to comply with the shade tree ordinance on compensatory plantings.
Okay, thanks.
Because that was, I remember there was an issue after I got, or before I got involved, saying that was there a buffer requirement?
Thank you.
Any other questions? No. I have a question. What consideration is given? It looks to me like the fence is, the intention is to come around that corner and then follow the driveway along the spa. I might be calling it more than it is, but.
For 32 feet, 4
Okay.
panels, yes.
Is the fence, is there any safety concern for if I'm patronizing that spa and I need to come out and make a right onto Conestoga Road? Will that fence impair my line of sight? I guess if I'm making a left, I should say.
Yeah, probably, or maybe less than the arborvitae would. The fence will be back from the driveway and the sidewalk a little bit more than the arborvitae are right now. So I would say it might improve.
I think that on a fence, and Kevin, correct me if I'm wrong, that police departments to come out and look and make certain you have sight distances
For corner properties.
for corner properties? Okay.
Yes.
But, so the fence will be set off behind that sidewalk then? Or, I'm not saying that right, but it'll sit behind the sidewalk?
I mean, the plan is to center the fence pretty much on the center of the tree trunks where they are right now. So take away half of the arborvitae, and that's how much further back it'll be set.
Right, there's prior testimony that's about 2 feet. Does that sound right?
I didn't measure it, but I've walked it a number of times. That's a good guess. They're about 4 feet wide, the arborvitaes, 4 or 5 feet wide.
Has anybody from the association spoken with the owner of the property where the spa sits or the other commercial property, the electric?
No, not yet.
I mean, well, with Keith, I have not spoken to Keith Martin, but I'm sure he has no objection. And he's probably watching, so. Yeah, go ahead, Skip.
Regarding the nail salon, the opposite side of their property has a 6-foot-high fence that runs along the boundary between the nail salon and I think it's the pool supply house.
Is that perpendicular to Conestoga Road or parallel? It's perpendicular.
Perpendicular.
Yeah, this is more parallel. That's what I
Well,
was
the
asking.
road curves right there,
Yeah.
and so it's sort of a little of both.
Gotcha. Okay.
So I have.
You'll see here, Keith Martin has I think that's, I don't know what that is, a 4-foot fence there in an attempt to buffer his trash enclosure.
Just request the exhibits be made part of the record, please.
That exception. Okay. Any public comment?
You have to come on.
Come on up.
Yes, and you raise your hand. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, whole truth, nothing but the truth?
Yes.
State your full name, please, and spell it.
Elizabeth with a Z, Cochran, Cochran.
Good evening.
Good evening. I would like to just ask a question. Would the fence be white, and what is the material?
Mike, you got to come up and use
The current plan is for a white fence, and it's a extruded vinyl fence.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
Extruded vinyl fence.
I live at 254 Conestoga Road. across from some condominiums at the corner of Bloomingdale and Conestoga, and they have approximately a 6-foot stockade fence that is not really an eyesore. You see some branches come over, lilacs sometime. I think that is going to be much more in your face with a big white fence as opposed to something that would be more natural like the arborvitae or a stockade fence or out of wood. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. Any other comment? Okay, seeing none. Do I have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I move yet again. In this instance, I move that the board grant the relief requested by the applicant for a variance from Section 280-109A of the code to permit a 6-foot-high fence in the front yard setback facing Conestoga Road in accordance with the plans and testimony presented here this evening.
Is there a second? Any discussion? No? Bud, go ahead.
I vote aye.
You're ready to vote. I was asking if you wanted any discussion. Yeah, that's okay. Anything
Yeah, I
else?
mean, the only thing I would say is that certainly as presented, the fence will be prominent, and I don't know if making it from another material would make it less prominent, but that's not the business we're in, so I'm just going to let that go. It's, you know, we're not design review for a reason here, so.
All right, we'll take a vote then. Bud?
I vote aye.
John?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
I'm also in favor. Motion passes. Good luck with the project.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course. We'll stand in recess for 5 minutes.
Yeah, you can do.
I don't think so. I don't think so.
Which one do you want to have?
I was confident a half hour ago.
No.
You know, it's funny with this thing like this fence. You know, every 10, 20 years you're going to change your design. Yeah. Somebody's display is that way.
20 years ago, those trees sounded like a great idea.
Like the idea of having the ultimate selection is crazy. Anyways, nice that people are.
Yeah.
Okay, but. Did you think that blended material
What consideration went into it? Other than 30-foot house?
Figuring out, you know, how do we get this worked? Because otherwise you're just spending legal fees and all this kind of crap to go to the court.
Oh, no, no worries. No worries at all. I talked to more than John. I did talk a little. Yeah, if I took offense at things like that, I'd be disappointed every day of my life. You proactively called me out at the grocery store. Yeah, well, okay, fair enough, fair enough. Good to see you. Thank you.
That's how it was testified. Maybe.
She'd have a better argument, but it's just, no, there's no precedent. No, not at all. But it's what they can sort of consider. Yeah, of course, with the argument. Take it into consideration.
But remember, this is the side we measured the height from.
Yeah, and then he was like.
You can add this to the stack of the ones you already have.
It's always good to have.
You might have, recently you might actually have the most cards. You know? I've been on a Radnor streak recently, so. It was all those conditional use hearings. Oh, it's still going on. He had shoulder surgery last week.
Was he in an accident?
He fell down. I think he was like going up the steps and fell and just.
So and then we haven't come up with any other dates yet?
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Okay.
Hopefully everybody's resolved.
That's what I'm thinking. It's an awful long break here.
It's a long hearing. I'll have to restudy everything. I did a good job of reading all the, all the code sections. Hopefully you just cut and paste. This is what he said.
There's nothing to cut and paste though.
What?
Well, I see what you, yeah, you said right.
You want to stay through?
I try to say them.
Yeah, but you leave the yeses off sometimes, or you paraphrase a little bit, It has to be accurate.
I think you should probably just,
Okay, I'll wait out.
because otherwise.
No, that looks good.
I think that might be a little.
Thank you. I'll see you in September. Enjoy the rest of the summer.
I had like
True.
15 hours or something.
Well, it'll be good to see you in September.
Yes.
Is that a record for you, do you think?
I think 4 nights might be a record.
I can't believe how
Because
busy
it was direct. Neighbors cross. Township cross.
I wonder if the guy
Redirect. Recross is recross.
was smart enough to turn around and see the size of the crowd.
Too much, there ought to be a law.
Yeah, but he,
Good question.
I
He was
do
smart
wonder a
enough to
little
know
bit,
what
because
wheelhouse without even getting too far in.
but, he's the owner, so he bought it with this in mind.
It's demonstrated by the fact that you're talking about.
Yeah, no, he's got a long road to hoe, but, hopefully, the way he bought it.
Yeah, 3 of them.
Okay.
Thank you. Thanks. Yeah, good. I'll see you. Have a good rest of the summer. You ready?
Yep, I am ready.
Are we? I think we're ready to go back on. I'll just get everything. All right, I'll call the meeting back to order. Mr. Hirsch was only with us till 9, but they're 9-ish, so it's 20 of. We decided that rather than have him start this next application, he would just step down now. Okay. Appeal number 3187, the applicant Eastern University, property located at 1300 Eagle Road and zoned PI, planned institutional. The applicant proposes to renovate and expand its current gymnasium to accommodate its current athletic programs. No additional gym seats are proposed. The applicant also proposes an addition to the Eagle Learning Center. Applicant requests variances or such other zoning relief from the required number of off-street parking spaces, Section 280-103B of the code, and the steep slope requirements, Section 280-112D of the code. The zoning officer has determined that the campus is non-conforming as to the required number of off-street parking spaces. The additions and renovations are to modernize and improve existing facilities to accommodate the existing student body and will not result in any increased parking demand. There will be no decrease in parking spaces, and the steep slope being disturbed is man-made. The applicant further seeks such other relief consistent with the exhibits and testimony presented at the hearing. Mr. Caniglia.
Thank you. Nick Caniglia, representing the applicant. You have seen almost the exact application several months ago for Workman Hall. And as we said that time, anything we do is going to have to come back to here because of the nonconformity on parking. You may recall. I'll get it.
I can get it. I'll get it.
That's okay, sure. Yeah, as I said, and you may recall at that time, we showed that at peak time, we have an excess of 250 parking spaces, approximately 25% of the total number of parking spaces on campus. So really, we're asking for the same type of relief here. There is some steep slope that's man-made that's being disturbed. And then also because we are doing the addition, we are required to add parking spaces according to the code. I've talked about this before, the Radnor code with schools, and I think I've talked myself out on it, but you have to, under the code, you have to comply with offices and cafeterias and dormitories and gyms and everything like that, even though it's not being used at the same time and different times and things of that nature, as well as classrooms. So that's why we're back to you again this evening on this matter. We'll have three witnesses: Trevor Jackson from Eastern, Rob Lambert, who's the civil engineer on the project, as well as Frank Tavani, who's a traffic engineer on the project. Trevor?
Swear the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Yes.
Thank you. State your full name, please, and spell.
Trevor Jackson, Trevor Jackson.
And Trevor, what is your position with Eastern University?
I am the Vice President for Finance and Operations.
And you testified here last time we were here too, is that correct?
Correct.
A2 is a copy of the deed. Is that a true and correct copy of the deed for the property?
Yes.
I'm going to show you the aerial, and we can either show it on the screen here or we can show it on the table, whichever is preferred. And the aerials of the campus and the surrounding properties, is that right?
Yes.
And what we're talking about is an addition to the Eagle Learning Center.
Here.
You want to use this? That may be better. Go ahead. Why don't you do it?
Oh, he switched back.
Rob? Oh, okay.
That's right.
Switch back. In addition, the Eagle Learning Center, which is located here on Eagle Road. Is that accurate? Right here?
Correct.
Almost on the intersection of Eagle Road and King Prussia Road. And then the gymnasium, which is located, I guess, would be on the western side of campus.
That's correct.
What is the purpose of the addition to the Eagle Learning Center?
It is to improve the existing facility. Currently, we have the gymnasium that is not being touched. It's the offices for coaches that currently we share 2 to 3 coaches per 10 by 10 office. We're now looking to give each coach and assistant coach their own office for all our current sports.
When were the gym facilities built? 1958 was when the school was established?
That sounds about right, correct.
And approximately what percent of your student body participates in intercollegiate sports?
We're about 60%.
And Are the existing facilities, are they undersized?
They are undersized and substandard.
Or some of the items that you have to share locker rooms?
Correct. We don't have most universities and colleges have specified locker rooms for each individual sport. That's men's and women's. We have to share anytime there's crossover sports, any sport that's going deep in the playoffs, and you have the next season starting, creates a major inconvenience, scheduling, just a total disruption to the athletics, and then it also feeds into the academic side of things.
And you had mentioned that actually coaches from different sports teams actually share offices.
Correct.
And you had, how about the student athletes themselves? Are there adequate facilities for them to shower and change and things of that nature?
There's not. We've been told by our student athletes that they find any area that they can to change.
And this is really just serving your existing student population?
That's correct.
And as you mentioned, there's no change to the capacity in the gymnasium. You're not adding seats or anything for attendance purposes.
Correct.
Just a couple quick questions. Is the office space on campus, is that occupied all at once at any one time?
No.
You have different schedules, correct?
Correct.
But although with the parking requirement, we're providing as if it was full all at once. Is that accurate?
That is, we call our office space hoteling because it's shared by multiple staff members. Two will be in on one day, and then Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, there'll be two different people working in the same space.
Are you aware of any, have you ever gotten complaints or aware of any parking off campus by faculty, students, or anyone of that nature?
No.
In your opinion, is parking on campus sufficient?
Yes.
Have you met with the neighbors on this project?
Yes.
And can you just describe the meetings you had and the concerns, if any, the neighbors may have had?
We had a very engaging meeting. We had, I'll say, about 15 neighbors, families attend the meeting. Overall, it was very positive, a lot of support, a lot of support for the university, a lot of excitement around the project. This is going to enhance the campus. These are neighbors that like to walk their dogs around campus, play with their kids on campus, and this is going to be a complete enhancement of our campus. We did have one neighbor that had some objection to some of the new parking lots that we were proposing at the time. Since then, we've reevaluated our parking situation and have made changes to accommodate their concerns.
That's all I have for Trevor.
Any questions of the board? Nope.
Rob?
Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. State your full name, please.
Rob Lambert.
And Rob, what's your profession?
I'm a civil engineer.
And I've marked as A25 your curriculum vitae. Is that right?
Yes, that is correct.
And you've been qualified as an expert in Radnor Township numerous times.
Many times.
I would just ask, I think you're familiar with Mr. Lambert. I would ask that he be qualified as an expert in civil engineering.
Yeah, without objection.
We appeared before the Planning Commission on this project, correct?
Yes, last week.
And what was their recommendation?
We had a unanimous recommendation for approval.
Going to show you what's been marked. If you want to come up here, can we switch back to the?
Can we switch back to the, here, I'll trade you.
Go ahead. Okay, you see A3, and that's what Trevor had already testified to as to the campus. And if you can show A4 and describe to the board what A4 represents.
So A4 is a rendering of the campus. It's in the same general orientation as A3, which was the area photograph. Eagle Road is at the top of the page going left to right. King of Prussia Road is on the right-hand side going top to bottom. So this is the long-range development plan. The project that Mr. Cornelia mentioned before was Workman Hall. That was what we had submitted, I guess it was about a year ago. We were here, or several months ago, we were here for the very similar relief. That project has broken ground and is currently under construction. What we're here for tonight is the ELC addition, which you can see, which is close to Eagle and King of Prussia Road. It's a small addition to the, what I call the bottom of the page south, to the south of the existing building. It can be seen in the darker blue color, where the lighter blue color is the existing building. The other addition we have is over to the left-hand side of the page. It's the gymnasium. Again, the existing gym is in a lighter blue color. The proposed addition is in a darker blue color. And then we have proposed parking areas. As part of the gym projects, it's going to displace some parking directly in that area. What we've done is we've provided additional parking areas on campus to have no net reduction in the current number of parking spaces.
Rob, if you can, is there anything regarding internal circulation that is changing as well?
Yes. So currently, Eastern has received approval to build 2 bridges, 2 new vehicular bridges. Those are also starting construction right now in a link road, and so they have the approval to do that. And that was all part of a discussion with neighbors to make the existing driveway off Fenimore to be just really, it's a limited access, right? So it's going to be emergency vehicles, some maintenance activity, but really a limited access. Currently, the parking lot for the gymnasium is only accessed off of Fenimore. So to get to that parking lot, you'd actually have to go to Fenimore. You can't get through campus. So if you came in the main entrance of campus, you couldn't actually get to the gym parking the way it's configured today. So it's been a long-going discussion with neighbors to be able to provide that connectivity through campus.
And you had mentioned it's a long-going discussion. I know I remember it for years, and I believe you're familiar with it also. Is that correct? Particularly the people who front kind of on Fenimore in that area. It was a very important piece to them.
Correct. I didn't represent Eastern at the time, but I'm aware of a lot of the discussions at the time. They had a campus further west that they were looking at developing, and closing this entrance has been important to those neighbors.
Referring to some photos, A5 to A11, can you just tell the board what those photos represent? If you want to go through each one, please.
Yeah, I did not open those. Give me one second. So I'm going to flip back and forth between the various photographs, and if I can, the overall plan just for reference. So Exhibit A5, so this is an area that we're proposing a parking lot. Off to the upper right-hand corner is the main entrance of the campus. And so going back to A4, this photograph would be standing as you come in the main entrance, which is the driveway closest to King of Prussia Road from Eagle. If you come straight down where that road starts to make a bend, the photographer is standing approximately in that location, looking back toward Eagle Road. Exhibit A6 was standing in the existing parking lot looking toward Workman Hall. We're proposing a couple parking spaces in between the 2 trees that are shown around the outside of the bend shown in A6. Exhibit A7 is the south side of Eagle Learning Center. What I note in this photograph is if you see the small brick wall, kind of a sitting wall that's in the photograph, that's approximately where the addition was going to, right? So you're really enclosing that patio area kind of as a spatial reference. Exhibit A8, this is the north side of Eagle Learning Center, and this is where we're proposing parking to extend beyond the circle, and there will be a driveway along the east side of Eagle Learning Center. Exhibit A9. So this is the gym parking lot as it exists today. The photographer's back would be facing Fenimore, looking into campus. You can see the existing athletic fields off to the left. The existing gym building is a little bit offset to the right. What you can't really see in this photograph is there's actually a swimming pool in between the parking area and the gym building that exists. There's a driveway on both sides of that pool area. And then Exhibit A10. This is standing on the athletic field, looking down to the swimming pool that I just referenced. The parking area you can see off to the right. This is an area that we'll talk about later is one of the slope areas. You can see it's really, when we get to it, is the athletic field was built out, the parking is a little bit lower, and you can see they just have a gentle rolling slope at that point. And then Exhibit A11, you can see the volleyball court, which I'll reference later when we talk about the parking lot along the Link Road. So what I can do next is go to Exhibit A12, which is a rendered site plan. King of Prussia Road is off to the right. Eagle Road is to the top of the page. You can see the building labeled Eagle Learning Center. The dark blue was the addition, and so that brick wall that was in the photograph is kind of really the bottom side of, approximately the bottom side of where that addition goes. We are proposing parking to the north or to the top of Eagle Learning Center, so between Eagle Learning Center and Eagle Road. We will provide parking there with a driveway that kind of will circulate around the building. So if you got to the end, you can circulate back around the building. You can see Workman Hall addition, which is currently under construction. You can see the existing parking area with the curve of the existing driveway. There are 5 spaces on the outside of that curve. That's where in that photograph we talked about adding in between the 2 trees a few parking spaces. And then we have 18 parking spaces, again, along the main driveway coming in where the road bends. We were proposing 18 parking spaces in that location. And then we look at Exhibit. Yeah, I'll circle back to those. The existing, this is Exhibit A15. Again, this is more of a rendered site plan showing the existing gym building in the lighter blue color, the proposed addition in the darker blue color. There's an athletic field just off the top of the page and to the left of where the addition is. We have reconfigured the existing parking area to introduce some landscaping in the center of it and to allow turning movement so you can circulate around the end, because this really becomes the kind of endpoint of circulation on campus. If you came to this point, you'd be able to circulate through this parking lot, either park or be able to circulate and go back out again. You can see the bridge that I mentioned that's currently starting construction. There's the lighter blue existing gym building, and just to the bottom of that, there are kind of lines that kind of straight with 2 kind of angles going off of the end. That is the bridge, with a small parking area in the area where that existing volleyball court in the picture was. And so we're proposing that volleyball court.
Rob, it looks like you're providing landscaping. So right now, I don't believe, probably so long ago, doesn't comply with the land development code. It looks like the landscape we're providing will now comply with the land development code.
Yes, we're proposing landscaping within the existing parking lot. The parking lot does not have any landscaping currently. And then I was going to go to A22R.
I have a couple. We've kind of, R is a replacement of A22. So I have A22R and A23R that I'll hand up, and then Rob can describe them.
Yeah. So A22R, the change from what was in your packet, was really I deleted the calculations off of it just to avoid confusion. as A23R includes those calculations in more detail. So A22 is really just showing the floor plans. There's 2 sheets to A22R. The first sheet is Eagle Learning Center, is labeled in the top of the page. On the first floor will just be a small gathering space. So if a prospective student comes, they can do presentations in that area. So this is really an addition for admissions. And so you can have small, prospective student gatherings before they go tour campus. On the second floor, there are some offices, including private offices. One of the things they don't have now are private offices, and when they're discussing financial aid with prospective students, they'd like to be able to have some separate areas. So there's a little bit of office space on the second floor, and then the third floor is simply a meeting room to be used by the existing office space. A22R, the second page of it, is labeled Gymnasium and Proposed Building Addition on the top of the page. So there's 2 floors. The first floor is on the bottom, second floor is on the top. The first floor, you can see it's really a lot of locker room space. There's kind of a battery of locker rooms, referee locker rooms. Along the top of the addition are, again, additional locker rooms, a team room, a small workout area. Again, and along the bottom are more locker room spaces, and also for visiting teams. So visiting teams would have a place to go. On the second floor, which is at the top, there are coaches' office spaces, which Trevor mentioned. There's a team room, so kind of a team meeting room that they'd be able to meet. And then there would be I believe it's a wrestling room on that second floor. So then we get to our parking and the wonderful Radnor code. So we count every space, and so these 2 pages of A23R go through every space on campus. We had an exhaustive study when we did Workman, working through with the acting zoning officer. We followed up with the zoning officer on that study to look at, really, it was every building on campus and every space. So going to the second page of A23R, the first page and top of the second page was really what the existing condition. And it shows that we have 1,600 parking spaces currently required, and we have 1,084 parking spaces. There'll be a later witness that will talk about the parking study that shows that I believe it was around 250 parking spaces are empty at our peak time. And we received the variance for parking for workmen in 2023. I just noted that there for clarity. Going to the next section, we have the proposed Eagle Learning Center, and going across to the top of the page, you have the office space of just under 3,000 square feet. The next line was the proposed gym addition. We had the team room, which had some fixed seating in it. And then we go through kind of general areas and then office space. The code counts 80% of floor area when you do counts, so that we have a leveling factor there for the 80%. And then the code requirements. And so the punchline is we have 239 parking spaces required for these improvements. But as we've mentioned, it's not really generating any more cars, right? We're just providing parking for our existing students and our existing uses.
And Rob, I believe you did mention that there's a slight net increase in the number of parking spaces.
Yes, I believe it was 1 additional space on campus. So we have no reduction. We were adding 1 space.
Can you show the board the areas of the slope?
Yep. So I'm going to look at Exhibit A24. There are 3 sheets to A24. The first sheet is the gym area. And what this shows is the proposed addition. You can see let's see how the colors show up there, a tan color for the existing gym, a darker brown color for the proposed gym. And you can see between the athletic fields, so just to the top of the page from the existing and proposed gym, there is an athletic field, and then off to the left, there is another athletic field. Along both of those athletic fields is a slope. There is areas that are steep, and moderately steep and very steep. And it was clearly man-made when they built the fields, right? You have the kind of the lower parking, the upper area, and so it's just a band of slopes along that. The parking area that we talked about on the Link Road, there's a small area in the corner where we've included as disturbance. We really don't have any improvements on it. I anticipate we'll have some small grading there. Since we're here, we wanted to make sure we cover that relief. And then going to the second page was the Eagle Learning Center. So for the second and third page, I actually have permit plans after 1979 that show the disturbance of these areas. However, the slopes aren't exactly the way they were shown on the plan. Since we were here anyway, and out of an abundance of caution, we wanted to make sure we asked for the relief. So just to the right side of the Eagle Learning Center, there's a set of steps that come out of the end of the building there, and there's a small piece of steep slopes in that area that we will disturb. And then going to the two parking areas, the area at the end of the radius, again, you can see where the steep slopes are on the existing area. So you have this parking lot. Again, we have the permit plans for this, but the slopes came around to the very end of that, and you can see where they carved out the parking lot into the slope. And we're proposing the parking spaces just at the very end. So we have a small area in that location disturbing the steep slopes.
Rob, are you familiar with the Radnor steep slope ordinance?
I am.
I'm going to ask you a couple questions, and if you can respond within a reasonable degree of scientific certainty as to your opinion on these steep slope areas. If you look at the Radnor Code, it talks about the intent of prohibiting disturbance of steep slope. One of them is the intent to control development of land in areas containing steeply sloped land for the following purpose. One, to limit erosion and sedimentation. Does the removal of these man-made steep slopes have any effect on erosion and sedimentation?
It will not impact erosion or sediment control.
The second item is to protect watersheds and limit increases in stormwater runoff. Is there any impact of removal of these slopes on those issues?
No, in fact, all of these improvements will have stormwater management controls as part of the development process.
The third item is to prevent an increase in the possibilities of landslides and soil subsidence. Is there any effect on those by these removal of slopes?
There will be no impact.
And is there any removal of foliage or landscaping areas outside of grass being affected?
There might be small areas, but again, we will have an extensive landscape plan as part of this project.
And is there any effect on streams from sedimentation and pollution as a result of removal of these slopes?
No, we will have a erosion and sediment controls when we do construction. It'll both have the township permits and a NPDES permit.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have for Rob at this time.
Any questions of the board?
Rob, back when they built the dorms, there was a lot of public input because of the corner of Eagle and King of Prussia about prior decisions about that nothing could happen in that corner. Do you remember that?
I was not involved at that time.
Okay, Nick, do you remember?
Yeah, I don't remember on. Are you talking down by the old mayor property?
By the Eagle Learning Center, where you're proposing to put this
The addition?
parking lot.
I think it's on, what area, the parking that you mentioned on by the ELC. Can you show that again?
Yeah,
So-
the plan for the dorms originally was almost out to King of Prussia Road.
Right.
And someone found, I think it might have been Ted Pollard, found a prior decision for Eastern that limited the construction over in that area.
I have not seen any, I've gone through lots of old plans as part of this, and I have not seen any restrictions in that area. We were complying with the setbacks. There is a stand of trees that will remain between Eagle Road and the parking area, and between the parking area and King of Prussia Road.
And John, it may have been the trees. It may have been something regarding the trees, I think, that they wanted to keep that additional buffer, which we're not, yeah. We're, and remember, this, you're talking Ted Pollard, who I think probably over 20 years ago, I would guess. But yeah, I kind of recall
You're not touching
something.
the trees, and my memory vaguely is that it was the trees, the agreement was to leave all the trees.
Right, which we're not, impacting on here.
Thank you.
Anything else for Rob? Frank? Which one do you want? Go ahead, you can go there.
Do you swear or affirm this testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
And state your full name, please.
Frank Tavani, Tavani.
Frank, what's your profession?
I'm a traffic engineer.
And have you appeared before the Radnor boards previously?
Yes.
I've handed up as A26 your curriculum vitae. Is that accurate?
Yes.
And you, as I mentioned, you have been qualified as an expert before the Radnor boards, both zoning hearing board, I believe Board of Commissioners, conditional use hearings, Planning Commission, land development. You testified numerous times before the Radnor boards. Would that be accurate?
Yes, it would.
May we have Frank qualify as an expert, please, in traffic engineering?
Yep, without objection.
Frank, you did a parking study for campus. Can you describe the board what your analysis was and your methodology, and how you have brought that up to current provisions as of today?
Yes, so reference is made to Exhibit A21. A21 is 8 pages. It includes essentially a cover or transmittal sheet, which you can see on the screen right now, which is 1 page long, and then that is followed by a 7-page report dated 13 October 2023, which I prepared approximately 9 months ago when I surveyed all of the parking on campus as part of the Workman investigations. And I'm just scrolling down to what is page 2 of that prior report, where I summarize on a per zone basis the observed empty parking spaces on a Monday and a Wednesday in October 2023 in the late morning hours between about 10 a.m. and 12 p.m., which, after consulting with university officials, I came to realize would be the busiest times of the week as far as students and staff. And as you could see at the very bottom of the screen, on the Monday, there was a total of almost 330 empty parking spaces of approximately 1,100 total available parking spaces. And then on the Wednesday, the availability dropped slightly to 250 empty parking spaces. Interestingly enough, those 2 bottom rows, Zone U and V, are the lots that the last witness discussed to some degree. Lot U is the larger lot, sometimes referenced as the athletics lot. That currently has a supply of about 68 spaces and is proposed to reduce to 42 spaces. And Lot V, which is called the gym lot, is proposed to be removed in its entirety. That was only about 14 spaces. As the last witness also mentioned, the proposal is not to abandon that parking supply entirely. In fact, there will be a slight increase of either 1 or 2 net increase of spaces by virtue of all the new parking that's created on campus. Nevertheless, most of the parking that's proximate to the gym will actually remain proximate to the gym. And the proposal affords other circulation benefits as well, as the last witness also mentioned. So in short, this is an amenity improvement. It's not really an added instructional space. It's not really added staff. The parking demands should remain consistent with what I observed 9 months ago. And since the proposed parking supply is proposed to increase rather than decrease, I see no reason why there should be any parking problems on campus if this project were approved as proposed.
When you perform your study, again, how many approximately empty parking spaces do you have at peak time?
Between 327 and 250.
And has there been any change since that period of time?
Well, of course, enrollment does fluctuate from year to year. Some years ago, there was actually considerably more resident and commuting students on campus. You can see now, I'm looking at the bottom of page 1 from the October report, where there were as many as almost 2,300 resident or commuting students. That number has been consistently dropping over the years. Actually, 2023 was slightly higher than 2022. I think it was in the low 1,600s, still a good 30% less than what it was about 10 years ago. And that underscores the availability of the parking supply as I observed.
Again, it's the parking supply. What percentage empty spaces were there?
Approximately 30.
I'm going to ask you a couple questions, and if you could respond within a reasonable degree of scientific certainty, your opinion. Is it your opinion that the parking on Eastern's campus is adequate for both the current and proposed uses?
Yes.
Is there, in your opinion, are there any adverse parking impacts resulting from the proposed project?
No.
That's all I have.
Any questions?
Thank you.
That's all the witnesses that I have. When the hearing's concluded, I request the exhibits be made part of the record, please.
Thank you. Without objection. Any public comment? Come on forward.
Hi. I do. Kathy Sonier, Kathy Sonier. Great. Thank you. Appreciate the opportunity to speak, and I understand that this is a hearing, zoning board hearing, so I want to talk about the parking, which is what this topic is, and then I am going to take advantage of the bully pulpit and throw in another comment for public record. Regarding the parking, we've read the data from the school that there is adequate parking. We've heard the testimony from Mr. Jackson at previous hearings that there is adequate parking. We're over there walking our dog, and we do agree that there's adequate parking. I'd like to go on record as saying that, first, sorry, let me back up. I live at 14 Cornwall Circle, St. David's. Our home is actually on Exhibit A3 and A4, so we are adjacent to the property of the school. That's quite relevant. Thank you. Appreciate that. Anyway, so our comment around parking stems from the fact that the proposed new parking lot that is shown in Exhibit, I believe, A11 over the volleyball court. Our question is if there's adequate parking, is there an opportunity to not put that parking there over green space and take advantage of other parking spaces, add on to those parking spaces, or build up from those parking spaces? That's the comment specific around parking, but that will probably make a little bit more sense when I get into the rest of my comments, which are overall our concern and objection around the plan to build the vehicular bridge and the road, as well as that parking lot that are adjacent to the new proposed gym. I also want to say that my husband and I and our family were big fans of Eastern University. We bought our homes adjacent to the school 15 years ago, in large part because we can see the water wheel from our dining room. So we have vested interest in the school succeeding and doing well, and we want to support that success. We agree that the gym is antiquated and needs to be updated, and we want to see them make those plans come to fruition.
but we're concerned, frankly, about the road and the impact that it's going to have on our property. We did attend the neighbor meeting that Mr. Jackson referenced on March 20th, and it was very, very positive to the plans that they proposed, because everybody in that room, except for my husband and I, were from Fenimore Road and Fairview. And as was stated earlier, there is a long-going issue with the residents on that side of campus because of the access to the parking lot by the gym and the traffic that travels down their road to get to that parking lot. So we know that we were here 15 years ago when this road and some of these plans were proposed. We know that that's been a contentious issue, and that in order to get the buy-in from that side of the campus, they need to close that parking lot. We empathize. We totally get it. We have friends on those roads. Our concern is that by solving their problem, we're creating a problem on other parts of campus. So by closing that road, you're now created one entrance and exit to the entire campus. It's a fairly inefficient flow of traffic that goes through open parking lots that at times can be sometimes dangerous. And not to mention the proximity to King of Prussia Road, where we're soon going to have Villanova making proposals and probably wanting to develop that property, bringing more traffic to that intersection. So the combination of trying to solve for the Fenimore Road closure, trying to get access to the gym, which we appreciate the school needs, has created a bit of an issue. And our biggest question has been proposed and has not yet been answered by the school is what other options have been considered. We've asked that question for years. In fact, Mr. Jackson mentioned that the only complaint was around the location of the parking lot. That's not true, because we sent him an email the day after the meeting on the 21st expressing our concerns around the road and what that's going to do to our property sightlines. So let me get into that specifically. So if our property is Cornwall, which you can't see me pointing to the computer, but if you look, yeah, right there, that your cursor is right on our property. So you can draw a direct line from our bedroom windows to the existing gym and athletic fields. And right now, when we look out our windows, we see green space, we see ponds with fountains, and we see a water wheel, and we love it. With this road, we are going to see and we're going to hear cars and buses and headlights. So that's our concern. In addition to the fact that now you're taking every piece of traffic that goes to that campus and routing it in and out of one exit and circuitously through the campus over green space and wetlands. So our biggest question has been, what else has been considered? We're not engineers, but we've asked the question and we haven't gotten an answer. So we're just wondering, is there an opportunity? Eastern's coming in front of the zoning board to say, hey, can we get a variance to the steep slope ordinance? Perhaps there's another way that they can reach the athletic fields without having to go through all of campus and cross over wetlands and green space by maybe coming down by Guffin or by Gallup. The other thing that I'm a little off kilter, quite frankly, because we were not aware that the bridge is already apparently under construction. When we had our neighbor meeting on March 20th, the question was asked, are the plans approved? When is it going to start? And we were told, no, they were not approved. We don't know when it's going to start. So we are a little surprised sitting here hearing that apparently construction's already starting on this vehicular bridge that we oppose. Anyway, so our big request is transparency around what other plans have been considered, and if they've been tossed to the side, why. We also asked for consideration of placing any additional parking that is proposed, maybe in places that already have parking, perhaps a vertical parking structure or a few more spaces here and there, rather than adding parking to an existing green space. And then the last ask is a full understanding of timeline and next steps, since we thought everything was yet to come with plans, but apparently there's some construction already starting. So thank you, appreciate the time.
Thank you. Nick?
Just to recall that the loop road is not before this board. I mean, that's a by right loop road, and I think some members of the board may recall this has been a big issue with the neighbors, construction of this loop road. And there were past projects that were not built that were conditioned actually on the construction of the loop road. We have considered other areas for parking, And Trevor, I don't know, Trevor or Rob, if you want to come up and just describe the other areas and why you did not park them there. And I believe one was Doan, which was even closer to Cornwell Circle. Up, I think.
Yes, so we originally, we had a couple ideas for parking. We realized how many spots we were losing with the addition and how many spots we were losing in the gym parking lot, as we refer to it, next to Doan, which would back right up to the residence property. We had a proposed parking area there that we thought was a solution to some of our parking challenges. Again, the challenge being the spots that we lose. We were trying to get back to a net zero at the very least. We recognize that. We recognize their concerns. We've communicated often with these neighbors, and we want to come to some kind of understanding. So we went back to the drawing board. We eliminated that idea. We found another spot over where the volleyball courts were, which we thought was tucked away a little more. We went so far as looking at other parking areas by the McGinnis lot, Rob, between the upper and lower McGinnis lots. We had some conceptual drawings of linking Thomas Drive Road all the way over with the lower McGinnis lot. That was considered. So some of these ideas we have discussed internally, but they didn't really materialize into anything more. When we met with the neighbors in March, that meeting was primarily to discuss these two projects, the Eagle Learning Center addition and the gym addition. It wasn't in reference to the Link Road because that was already approved.
I guess my question while we're talking about it is, was there consideration given to just losing those parking spaces as opposed to trying to get yourself to net zero?
And probably I could address that. We did not really want to increase the existing nonconformity. That's why we were trying to do a net zero on it. And we thought that would be more appropriate and, for this board and for the planning commission also to show that there was no net decrease of parking spaces.
Catch-22 of
Yeah.
minimum relief.
And no consideration was given to a parking structure?
Yeah.
Yes, actually, we have conceptual drawings for a parking structure over by the Sparrock lot across from Eagle Hall. We were looking to take advantage of the topography coming off of Eagle Road down through the main entrance of campus. It just became a bit cost prohibitive in that area, and so we kind of shied away from that, and we were looking for other alternatives that were a more appropriate solution to getting to net zero.
And if you notice, where the parking is being proposed is really kind of in the middle of campus. It's nowhere near the setbacks or violating the setbacks or anything of that nature. The only relief really being requested is relief on some of the minor steep slope issues around some of these parking spaces.
Is there any sort of vegetative buffer between, I don't know what direction I'm looking, is that the southern side of campus?
South, yes. It'd be south.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Is there any vegetative buffer between the residential homes along that?
There absolutely is, but I will attest that there are gaps, and that may be a good thing or a bad thing, depending on if you want to see a water wheel or not. The university has discussed if any kind of additional traffic, we would be willing to put up buffers, we would be willing to put up vegetation to accommodate that. So those discussions have happened internally, and open to those ideas for sure.
And remember, this will proceed to land development as well.
Okay. Any other public comment? Seeing none. Do I have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I would move that the board approve the relief requested by the applicant from the application of Section 280-103B of the code regarding the required number of off-street parking spaces and the requirements of Section 280-112D of the code relating to steep slope requirements in accordance with the exhibits and testimony presented here this evening.
Any discussion? John? No, I don't either. Okay, let's take a vote then. John?
Aye.
I'm also in favor. Thank you. Good luck with the project. Okay. Somebody drew the short straw tonight. Appeal number 3188, the applicant Hilltop Preparatory School, property located at 737 South Ithan Avenue and zoned PI planned institutional. The applicant seeks a variance from section 280-123D2 of the code regarding sign content.
Yes.
Good evening.
Good evening. My name is, yes, both of us, yes. Yes. My name is Seth Straff, S-E-T-H-S-T-R-A-F-F. R-A-F-F. Straff, yes.
And my name is Kevin Maine, K-E-V-I-N, M-A-Y-N-E.
Okay. I don't know how to use this thing.
Oh, yep.
Okay, there you go. That's the present sign that we have at Hilltop School. We've been approved for a sign to be erected, and we have permits for the structure. That's the old sign. This is what we want to replace it with. And I'm going to let the head of school talk about the wording on the sign.
Great. Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you this evening. No. Again, magic. The new sign that we have proposed not only says the name of the school, but I believe that the area of concern is the line underneath it, which is serving neurodiverse students grade 5 to 12. We have a unique mission at Hilltop. We serve a very distinctive group of students, students who have learning disabilities, ADHD, executive function challenges, and autism, collectively known as neurodiversity. Our students have disabilities. We feel that it's important to let people know not only that we're here, and as you can tell by the existing sign, no one ever knows that we're there when you pass by that. And it also actually has more wording on it than what we're proposing. But the new sign states who we are and what we do, which is also consistent with other school signs in the area, such as Sacred Heart Academy, St. Aloysius, who also have kind of a moniker under there saying Catholic, grades 5 to 12, et cetera.
Okay, I'll help you through a little bit. Although I do have a question, I just want to make sure I heard correctly. So
Sure.
The sign as we're looking at, and let's mark some. Let me take a half a step back. Let's mark some exhibits.
Sure.
So your application will make as A1. Why don't we go with the photograph of the existing sign is A2, and then A3 is the proposed sign.
Correct.
Okay, so what we're looking at in A3, that has been approved for purposes of the sign.
Yes. Correct.
It's the content that you're here for.
Correct.
Okay. So the only relief then are the words on the sign. So the only relief are the words on the sign then?
Correct.
Okay.
And for clarification, the now accepting applications for fall is removable. That would be in lieu of putting up yard signs, for example, so that would only be up briefly under the 30-day requirement.
Okay. Let's mark it. A4 is the deed to the property. And what was your title? With
I'm head of school.
Head of school. Okay, and how about you?
I'm on the board.
You're on the board. Okay, perfect. Okay. What am I missing, John? Actually, there's a few more. Let's just go through. So there's a assessment map
Yes.
in your packet. An assessment map.
Yep.
I forgot where I'm up to. A5. Yeah.
Are you referring to this? Yeah.
Yes. Just tell us what that is that we're looking at.
Sure. So the existing sign is over here on South Ithan. The new sign would be across our driveway on our property to the right. And this is the driveway that goes up to the school.
Okay. And then you've got a few more photographs as well.
We do.
So we can call that page A6. And what are we looking at here?
So if you're coming on South Ithan, and I don't know if that's north, south, east, or west, to be totally honest. As you come up here, you would go up to the campus. The existing sign is on South Ithan. The new sign would be over here.
Okay.
Still on South End.
No, on our property. It's on our driveway. The South Ithan is here, and this is our private driveway.
And then the picture below that is
Just
facing
another
the opposite
vantage point.
direction.
Right.
Okay. And then your surrounding neighbors, those are residential, correct?
There are none.
There really are none around that
Blue
area.
Route is across
You
from
have
us.
to go one at a time.
I'm sorry. The
that's-
Blue Route is across from us and the park.
And the South Ithan Park is across. The closest neighbor is me on campus.
Okay. Oh, okay. So there's no, I thought there was some residential homes along South Ithan.
Further north, I actually
Way
live
down.
on South Ithan Avenue, but
Way down.
on the other side of Conestoga.
Understood. Okay. All right. Any, go ahead.
Since I first saw this, I don't understand the need for the variance. So could somebody clarify for me what the code says?
It has to do with the actual language that is used on the sign. I think let me turn to the code to get it exactly, but bear with me for a second.
So a freestanding sign shall contain only the name, address, logo, and/or telephone number of permitted use.
Okay.
So they're outside the scope.
So
I'm assuming that's the
just to,
decision that is on.
That is correct.
I'm sorry. I'll quickly read that again. So the section of the code that is relevant here states, sign content, a freestanding sign shall contain only the name, address, logo, and/or telephone number of a permitted use. So that's why we're here.
okay. And almost every sign for every school has more than
Right. For example, here's St. Aloysius, which has the even more. Yeah,
Yes.
that's quite a bit.
I've lost track of numbers,
Yes.
but, so that photograph I don't think is in your packet.
It isn't.
It isn't.
It isn't.
Yeah, so we'll make that A7, and I'll just ask that you hand that up to us when we finish.
Sure.
So we can keep it
Happy
in the
to.
file.
All right.
Okay. All right. Anything else? No? Okay. So at this point is when you would move your exhibits into the record?
We move our exhibits into the record.
Without objection. Any public comment? Seeing none. I think you outlasted everybody.
It's past my bedtime.
It's way past my bedtime.
Most meetings, it's like that. Not tonight, but most meetings, it is like that.
All right. Is there a motion?
You can't break my streak now. I mean, come on. Mr. Chairman, I would move that the board grant the relief requested by the applicant from the application of Section 280-123D2 of the code regarding sign content, consistent with the testimony and exhibits presented here this evening.
Second.
Any discussion? Nope, we'll take a vote. John?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
I'm also in favor. Motion passes. Good luck with the project.
Thank you very much.
All right.
Made us
Enjoy the
wait
rest
long
of the
enough.
And who do we
Oh,
give this
Yeah,
to?
we'll take that, yeah. And enjoy the rest of the summer, and we'll be back here in September. We're adjourned.